My name is Shoana Cachelle. Maiden name is Clarke. My father, his name is A.B. Clarke Jr., my grandfather, A.B. Clarke Sr., and their ancestors were traced back to the Cora, which was the boat that brought folks from Barbados to Liberia. My father is A.B. Clarke Jr. He is known to everyone as Counselor Clarke, the lawyer. To me, he's dad. Um, he loves us to death. His children are his world. His family is everything to him. Growing up, my father was very stern. He was the disciplinarian in the household. And he really instilled in us some values, lots of the values that I take with me today. I remember when we left Liberia to go to the States, I had asked him to go to a friend's house or something. And he said to me, he's like, we're not here to have fun. We're here to survive. And at the time, I just thought it was the most cruel thing to say to a child who wanted to go for a sleepover. But I got what he said. He was saying he wanted to protect us. We were not visiting the US, because we were on vacation. It was a necessity, for our lives. And so we shouldn't forget that there are our people in Liberia that are still struggling. And here we are living. We can't be having fun. We need to survive this to get back home, I think was what he was saying. But I love my dad. My dad gives amazing advice. He's very thorough with the advice that he gives. He won't just say, I think you should do this. He'll tell you how he thinks you should do it. And he connects you with the people that he thinks can help you do it. And he doesn't wait. He takes action right there. You might be thinking about something in the future. And he's like, let's do this now, and he'll start making phone calls. If he says he's going to do it, he's a man of his word. He'll do it. Few funny moments with my father. And I'm trying to think of the funniest. I have the funniest to me and he has the funniest to him. But the funniest to me was we had gone to visit friends of my parents, and my dad had gone into the bathroom, and I had to go really bad. And I figured if I knocked on the door and said it's me, he'd be like, all right, I'm coming. But if I knocked on the door and pretended that I was another guy, he might open the door quickly. So I knocked on the door and he said, I'm in here. No, I knocked on the door and I said, AB, is that you in there? And I must have been about 10 years old. And he's like, yeah, I'm just finishing up. When he opened the door, he looked up and he looked down and saw me, and we both busted out laughing. And just yesterday, he was mentioning that joke. So we've all over the years just laughed about this, how I got him. I'm like, Dad, I got you. Patient for my dad was everything. He knew that education was a way that we would not suffer, that we would always have jobs, that we would always be able to survive. I remember telling my father that I wanted to go to school for communications. I wanted to be a broadcaster. And he didn't think that that was a real job. He was like, nope. You need to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, just something that he knew. It was like the typical do these jobs and you will make money. You will be able to sustain yourself. You'll be able to survive, these jobs, other than that, communications. He's like, nah, it's not gonna happen. And he was very adamant on what type of career or future he wanted for his children. If you'd asked me this question about 20 years ago, the answer might have been very different. As we've blossomed and grown in our relationship, as I've gotten older and matured, there are a few things about my dad that I think he's taught me and that I hold on to. He really never wanted us to be like anyone else. He wanted us to be extraordinary. He wanted us to break barriers, to make a place at a table for ourselves. And so he prepared us even from a very young age. I remember a story where we used to say in Liberia, current gone, lights gone, current gone. And he was like, no, don't say it like that. Say, we've experienced electrical failure, or we've experienced power failure. And I'm like, Dad. So I remember the night after we talked about that, the next day he had pulled up in the yard, he and a friend of his, and they were talking, and lights went. And so I went running outside. Excuse me, daddy, we've experienced power failure. And the man looks down, he goes, what school your child going to? And we both busted out laughing. And so, I mean, it was just always be extraordinary in everything that you do. I talked about him being a man of his word. When he says he's going to do something, he does it. And that's something that I really always admired about my dad. And I just thought, like, you know, he gained so much respect from me, knowing that he was a man of his word. So I was like, you know what? I want to be respected by others. So I'll be a woman of my word. So that was something else that I learned. Education, you know, learn as much as you can, read as much as you can. My dad is a historian, and I learned so much from him. Any question that I have about history, I go to him and he has an answer. So just, you know, gaining knowledge is something that I think is very important to my father, and therefore very important to me. So I went to school for telecommunications broadcast, well, yeah, and broadcasting. So radio and TV production, being an anchor, a journalist, news reporting, all of those things. I had an opportunity to be a news reporter on Temple Public Radio in Philadelphia. And then I was on Temple Update, which was the TV station, for a while, and just did different radio shows. And then I applied for a job at ABC. And ABC was it. It was like I had worked so hard for the past 4 years to land a job with a major network, and I did. And I went in and had a meeting with them. It was where I was supposed to sign my contract, and they said, we had 2 questions for you. And I was like, what are those 2 questions? And they said, 1, we're wondering if it's okay to change your name to something like Shannon instead of Shoana. And I was kind of shocked. And I was like, Shannon? Like, why Shannon? And they were like, it's similar to your name. And I said, well, what's wrong with my name? They were like, well, we want people to just pay attention to you. You have a great voice, a great look. We just think that the name is a bit too ethnic. And I remember taking a deep breath and trying to stay calm. And I said, okay, well, what's your other question? And they said, well, at the time I have very curly hair, and I had my hair up in a fro, like a bun. And they said, do you mind, you know, just wearing a wig for your broadcast, you know, just like a straight wig, and you can snatch that wig right off after the newscast, you know, thought that they were saying something that would sound good to me. And I remember asking them if I could think about it, and that I would, you know, send them an email that night. And I remember driving home and crying my eyes out, calling my mother. And I said, I'm not taking this job. I was like, I am absolutely not. I said, they don't even know what they've done to me. They're trying to break me, you know, my tradition, my culture. They're just like pulling this away. It was devastating, you know. So anyway, I think it's crazy, but this was something that really broke my heart. When I moved to Liberia, I decided that I was coming as a missionary. I was not going to work for a for-profit organization. I was going to do God's work. And so I came and I unofficially adopted 46 kids in an orphanage. And I spent 3 years being a professional beggar, asking for money to build a school on this orphanage, and, you know, and take care of these children, buy their uniforms, their bunk beds, their socks, their shoes, their underwear, just everything, provide, you know, an education for them. And 3 years into it, the mother of the orphanage, her son, became very greedy. He saw that a lot of the people in the community wanted their children to come to the school. And I said, no, I wanted to focus on these orphans, because when I met them, most of them, you know, 90% of them could not read. And it was ages, you know, up until 13, you know. And so I was focused on teaching them how to read and write first before we started bringing kids in from the community. And so 3 years in, this guy thought like, okay, I can make a lot of money. They decided that they were going to take the school from me because I built it on their land, that they were going to take everything that was raised for the school along, you know, computers, everything that had all of our information. And they took those. And I believe that that's a very important point in my life, because I felt like I was stripped naked as an adult, just stripped of everything that I had, integrity, just physically, spiritually, I was stripped of everything. And that was a turning point in my life, where I fully committed to God. Um, and I said, you know what, this is not going to make me waver. I will come out of this, and I'll come out of this strong. And it was a battle. It was really a battle, because at the time I was going through a divorce. I had had a miscarriage. Anything that could go wrong. I had left my family for the first time, had no one here in Liberia when I got back. I was on my own. I had just adopted a child and struggling through that. You know, it was just so much going on. So um, that probably was, like I said, the turning point in my life where I said, you know what, I have not died from all of this. I am a survivor, and I am going to live the best life that I can live, the most righteous life that I can live, impacting my community, serving my country, and being the best mom to my children. And a question where I know a lot of friends and family want to know. Well, this is just my philosophy. I feel that there were some of us that were privileged to leave Liberia during the war, to get an education outside of Liberia, to continue living. And I honestly believe that it is, in order for Liberia to rebuild, for those of us who got to escape the war, it is our moral obligation to come back and help rebuild. Because without us, it's not going to happen, you know? And so when that feeling came over me after I graduated college, I started my own business. I was in my business for 8 years, and I was like, you know what? I need to do more, and Liberia is where I need to be. And I remember telling my father, and he was just like, what's wrong with you? You don't have anyone there. It's not a good idea. You know, my parents were very concerned. They thought I was going crazy. But I was like, I'm in the middle of a divorce. If I go there, I can have help over here. You know, you can't just depend on family because everyone's working and struggling in the States, you know? And so I made the decision to leave and to come back, give back, and help my people. A creative and performing arts preschool. I also run a guest house, and then I run a marketing and advertising firm here in Liberia. I believe one of my callings is to help entrepreneurs build businesses and become sustainable in their business. You know, the whole idea is to create generational wealth, right? So I feel like if I can assist one person and 2 people and 3 people in doing that for their family, like, I've made an impact. It's going good. The school is going really, really well. It's the first of its kind in Liberia. Um, you know, I was thinking of a school that would create young leaders. And when I thought about it, I was like, what could the curriculum be about? A lot of schools are academically based, but there's a whole nother side to the human, right? Which is the arts, the creative side of them. And so what if I created a program that addressed both the academic and the creative side of a child? And so that's how my program started. And so the kids, you know, one of the things when I thought of a young leader, I thought of a child that was bilingual. So at the age of 2, they start learning French. So 2, 3, and 4. The preschool is only for 2 to 4 early 5-year-olds. So self-discipline, part of our curriculum is yoga daily. They have yoga daily. And then self-discipline. So they have karate classes. And then I thought, wouldn't it be great for them to learn how to play an instrument? So we have piano classes. And then we have performance, because that helps to build their confidence, along with math and movement, reading adventures, science, you know, experiments, outdoor adventures, you know, just your basic academic parts of things. So phonics, just everything. It's a all-inclusive program that caters to the whole child. But I mean, one thing that I always just remember is, you know, all things are possible, right? So if there is an obstacle, I take each obstacle as they come and just kind of navigate through it one step at a time. There's no specific, you know, routine. I just deal with each as it comes. I don't try to deal with everything at the same time. I think maybe that's helpful. But as Liberians, like I said, I truly believe that if we were privileged to leave this country, instead of bashing it, we should be trying to raise money to make something happen. And if each one of us comes back and does something small for one community, it makes a difference, you know? So yeah, I mean, if there was advice, I would say come back with a giving spirit, no expectations, forget what you've heard, because everybody's experience is quite different. and do what you have to do. I don't regret at all moving back to Liberia. I don't regret, I mean, the struggles. I mean, I think it makes you stronger. Um, I think the impact is so much greater than the small issues of not having electricity or not finding a mechanic who can really fix your car. Like, you know, if you're making an impact and you're changing lives and you're hiring people, giving them jobs and opportunities to excel, like that matters more. I grew up loving cassava leaf and rice. And since I've relocated to Liberia since 2009, it's kind of gone to potato greens. And then now a little bit of palm butter, but I think maybe it will say, oh, actually now it's fried okra. So I don't know. I think every year is something different because I'll eat a lot of whatever it is that I really like. I eat way too much of it and then get sick of it. So I think now it's fried okra. So my grandmother, just, you know, we used to call her a sweetheart, and she truly was a sweetheart, very giving heart. I think she just would want to be remembered as a mom who truly, truly loved her children and her grandchildren, because she definitely did spoil us as well. So, I mean, at least that's how I remember her, as someone who was truly a family person and very, very loving. My grandfather, I remember him as someone who was very wise. You know, he knew a lot. He was someone to kind of just sit at his feet and listen to stories because he lived a full life. Anyone who knows him knows he lived a very full and exciting life. And so he was full of stories, full of knowledge. I know my dad enjoyed sitting with him and just asking questions because, you know, my father is a historian, so just all types of questions. And my grandfather had all the answers. And that's something for me, just even as simple as my grandparents, who I don't necessarily consider ancestors, you know, but I feel like just having I don't know, memoirs of them in your house somewhere, you know. So right now, this house in Liberia I live in is a house that my grandmother and grandfather built. And each of the rooms in the house have names. So I have one called the Josephine room, because her name was Marie Josephine. I have the Benedict room. My grandfather's name was A. Benedict Clarke, you know. So it's just, you know, those types of things, just having little things around that remind you to reflect on the past every now and then, I think is really good. Some people have birthdays, remembering birthdays of grandparents, you know, every time the birthday comes up. Um, I think even having a family tree is a great way to kind of stay connected and pass that down to your kids and then their kids. So just that generational thing. I just want to put a plea out to young people who are on the fence about coming back, or you've heard, you know, such horrible things about Liberia. I really want folks to come back and see what they can do to give back. I mean, we don't have very many psychologists here. And this is one country that needs, you know, therapists. So if you have that background, you know, you need to come. If you are a doctor, nurse, anybody in the medical field, there's a lack, you know, in our healthcare system. So any of you who have those backgrounds, come and impact, even if you're not here for a long period of time, you know, dedicate a year or two to giving back here. I mean, because you're definitely, that's basically what it is giving back, because you're not going to be able to be compensated the way you would, you know, anywhere else. But I just think that we should come back and do something, you know, if it's not forever, but just a little something, whether you build a school and hire people to run it, you know, whether you build a clinic, I mean, just anything, anything.